Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wondered what is really going on in our heads when we stand in front of a beautiful old church painting, like a fresco? Does it just look pretty, or is there more to it today? We're diving into a fascinating study that has developed a whole new way to measure how people experience these sacred artworks. It's called the Fresco Experience Scale, and it helps us understand the layers of meaning, feeling, and connection we get from these incredible images. So imagine yourself in an old Orthodox church. There are these amazing paintings called frescoes all over the walls and ceilings. They're not just decorations, they are part of the whole spiritual experience. Scientists noticed that while people study these art pieces a lot, there wasn't a good tool to measure how regular people feel and engage with them. It's more than just saying I like it. It's about how it makes you think, how it makes you feel, and what it connects you to. The big goal of this research was to create a tool, a scale, to measure this complex experience. They wanted to see if people's feelings about frescoes could be broken down into different parts or dimensions. Think of it like tasting a complex dish. You can describe the sweet, the salty, the spicy, and the texture. Right? This study wanted to do the same for looking at frescoes. To do this, they created a questionnaire with 36 questions. They had almost 800 people in Serbia fill it out. These people weren't just looking at a single fresco. They were asked about their general feelings and experiences when they usually see frescoes in church. This is important because it's about their typical, or recalled, reactions over time. They also filled out other questionnaires to see how their fresco experience related to how religious they are, their general appreciation for art, how much they feel connected to their country, and even some personality traits. They wanted to see if fresco experience was connected to these other areas, and to what extent. Now, for the findings. The big news here is that they found 6 different ways people experience frescoes. It's not just one thing, let's break them down. First, Taraz, the visual aesthetic part, how someone notices and appreciates the colors, composition, and technique. Then, Taraz, the emotional aspect, the feelings that the frescoes bring up, like awe or peace. Next, the cognitive dimension is about understanding and interpreting the images. Thinking about their meaning, like the stories they tell or their historical significance. This is where it gets really interesting. The communicative facet is about feeling like the artwork is speaking to you or engaging in a silent conversation. It's about a sense of being addressed by the image. Then, spiritual transformative is about those experiences that feel deeply spiritual, life-changing, or make you feel a sense of sacred presence or renewal. And finally, sociocultural, this captures how frescoes connect us to our heritage, our community, our identity, and a sense of belonging and continuity. The researchers found that a model with these 6 factors fit the data really well. It was much better than if they had just tried to measure one overall fresco experience. This means that we can actually measure these different aspects of engagement. They also looked at creating shorter versions of the scale, like one with 24 questions, which also seemed to work pretty well, though they say it needs more testing. So, what does this mean for us? It tells us that when we look at these sacred images, our brains and hearts are doing a lot more than just passively observing. We're actively engaging on visual, emotional, intellectual, communicative, spiritual, and cultural levels. And it's not just about how religious you are. While religiosity and national identification were linked, so was general aesthetic engagement. This suggests that even if you're not super religious, you can still have a deep experience with these frescoes through their beauty, their history, or the stories they tell. Now, the researchers also looked at whether this scale worked the same for men and women, and for people of different religious backgrounds. They found it worked pretty much the same for men and women, which is great for comparing groups. However, when they compared Orthodox Christians to non-Orthodox participants, they found some differences. This means we have to be careful when comparing average scores between these groups. It's important to remember that in this study, the non-Orthodox group was mostly Muslim, so these differences might be due to more than just religious beliefs. They could also be related to cultural or ethnic backgrounds. Scroll limitations and future directions. First, notable ceiling concentrations, especially for visual aesthetic and sociocultural. And in the FES24 also for communicative likely reduced discrimination among highly engaged respondents and may have attenuated associations at the upper end of the score range. Scroll, like all research. This study has its limits. One thing they noticed is that for some of these dimensions, especially the sociocultural one, many people agreed very strongly. This is good in one way, as it shows how important this connection is to people. But it also means it's harder to tell the difference between people who are extremely connected to this aspect, compared to those who are just very connected. It's like a too much of a good thing problem for measurement. They also mentioned that the sample had more women and younger, educated people, so we need to be careful about generalizing the results to everyone. Another interesting point is that the emotional and spiritual transformative parts were very closely related, almost overlapping. While they are distinct concepts on paper, in real life, feeling emotional might often go hand in hand with feeling spiritually transformed. The researchers worked hard to show they were still different, but acknowledged they are a closely related pair. So, what's my take on all this? This study is a fantastic step forward in understanding our engagement with sacred art. It moves us beyond simple liking to a much richer, more nuanced picture of how these ancient images still speak to us today. The Fresco experience scale looks like a powerful tool for researchers, and even for art historians or religious studies scholars to explore how these artworks impact people. The fact that they found these 6 dimensions — visual, aesthetic, emotional, cognitive, communicative, spiritual, transformative, and sociocultural — really highlights the complexity of human experience. It shows that our interaction with art, especially art that has deep cultural and spiritual meaning, is a multi-layered process. The implications are pretty significant, for example. Understanding the communicative aspect could help artists and religious educators think about how to create art that feels more engaging and addresses the viewer more directly. The sociocultural dimension reminds us that art is not just personal, it's often deeply tied to our collective identity and heritage. Looking ahead, the researchers suggest refining the scale to pick up more subtle differences, especially where many people agree strongly. They also want to see the scale used and tested in different cultures and religious traditions to see if these 6 dimensions hold up everywhere. And of course, independently validating those shorter forms is key to making the scale easable in more research settings. Ultimately, this research opens up fascinating avenues for exploring the powerful connection between art, spirituality, and culture. It shows that even centuries-old frescoes can still profoundly affect us in multiple ways. What do you think? Have you ever felt like a fresco was speaking to you or transforming you? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more science stories, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.